Oh, there we go. All right. Assalamu alaikum
Okay.
warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, everybody. I
Hi,
think
assalamualaikum.
we have, yeah, sound is working. Okay, great. So, today, thank you guys for joining us. We have our Immigrant Rights Workshop with CARE New York. But before we get started, I just wanted to introduce Majlis Shura, myself, and, the presenter from CARE New York. So Majlis Shura is the umbrella organization of Muslims and Masajid and Muslim organizations in the 5 boroughs as well as Long Island. There are some of our members that are there. And Majlis Shura was established in February 1989. It is the largest Muslim umbrella organization in New York. It represents over 90 member organizations from Masajid to community-based organizations. And it advocates and represents the Muslim community of New York, and it tries to build programming such as this one that is beneficial for the Muslim community. I'm Musab. I joined Majlis. It will be officially a week ago, 8 days ago, today, as the outreach manager. So I am in charge of building strategic relationships inside the Muslim community, but also outside with our government partners, as well as other organizational partners that we have, such as CARE New York. So Haneen, go ahead. You can introduce yourself.
Thank you, Brother Musab. Assalamualaikum, everyone. My name is Haneen Muhammad, and I'm the Outreach and Volunteer Coordinator here at CARE New York. And I will also be presenting our Immigrants Rights Workshop with Moya.
All right, so let's get the presentation up really quickly, and we can get this going. All right, 1 second. And I think we should be good to go. Hold on. Okay, can everyone hear everything? I think sound is good. Okay, great. You can get it going.
Awesome. Hi, everyone. Thank you for taking the time to come and to learn more about your immigrant rights as a citizen in New York City. So I just wanted to thank everyone who joins us today in learning about your rights as an immigrant in New York City. Before we start, I'd like to make it clear that I am not an attorney, and this presentation is an educational guide to help you learn about your rights as an immigrant New Yorker and services that are available to you. And this is not meant to serve as legal advice. And so today we'll be learning about rights as immigrants in New York City. We'll also cover updates on policy changes such as DACA, temporary protected status, the travel ban, and public charge. Please make sure to take this information sheets on these issues if you are interested in them. And we have them in different languages for available. Our objectives today is to learn about recent changes to federal immigration policy that may affect you. Second is to learn how to identify and interact with federal immigration officers in public and private spaces. Third is to learn how to access free and safe legal services and resources. And lastly, to learn about COVID-19 treatment and testing. First, we'll be learning about immigration enforcement actions and how we can be prepared. Immigration enforcement actions are when ICE enforces immigration laws, such as conducting investigations or making arrests. Regardless of your immigration status, it is important to know your rights when interacting with ICE in order to keep yourself and your community safe. These are terms that you should know that are very important to us, since they'll come up a lot in this presentation and they'll be useful when dealing with these issues. So we're going to go through each of these terms to learn what they mean. Our first term is the Department of Homeland Security, or DHS. DHS is the federal agency that oversees immigration matters, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, and United States Citizenship and Immigration Services, USCIS, are part of the DHS. Next, we have ICE. ICE stands for U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement. ICE is a federal agency within DHS that enforces immigration law. A lawful permanent resident, or LPR, is a person that has been officially granted the right to reside permanently in the United States, which includes permission to work in the United States. LPRs are sometimes referred to as green card holders. An undocumented person is someone without legal immigration status living in the United States, including people who overstay after entering on a visa. Our next term is public areas. A public area is a space where anyone can go. Examples of this are like a retail store, like a supermarket, convenience store, public building, library, government building, etc., street, or the sidewalk. And there are also private areas. A private area is a space that is not generally accessible by members of the public, such as your home or your employee-only areas at a workplace. Lastly, we have warrants. A warrant is an official document that gives government agents certain permissions. We will discuss the different type of warrants and their uses later in the presentation. Executive orders and federal policy changes. In the last 3 years, there have been a lot of changes to federal immigration policies, and they can happen quickly and can be confusing. We're going to cover the most up-to-date information on some of the major policy changes. And I'd like to say before going into these that we are currently updating all of the information to the current administration and what is currently being changed to. First is DACA, or Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals. Does anyone know what DACA is? DACA is a federal immigration program that began in 2012 under President Obama that helped undocumented immigrants who came to the United States as young people. DACA provides eligible undocumented immigrants with temporary protection from deportation and access to work authorization. Currently, the federal government must continue to accept renewal DACA in applications only. The government is not accepting new applications. For more details, please see our available up-to-date details on the new administration on the MOIA's website. The next major policy change we're covering is TPS, Temporary Protected Status. Temporary Protected Status, or TPS, allows individuals from certain countries to remain in the United States if it is unsafe for them to return to their home country due to a humanitarian emergency there. For example, the federal government may designate a country for TPS if there is an armed conflict, an example, civil war, or a natural disaster, such as like an earthquake. TPS enables recipients to work in the United States lawfully and protects them from deportation as long as the TPS designation is in effect. The following countries are currently designated for TPS: El Salvador, Haiti, Honduras, Nepal, Nicaragua, Somalia, Sudan, South Sudan, Syria, and Yemen. The future of TPS for many of these countries is not certain. People should make sure to get the most up-to-date information about TPS designations. The fourth federal policy is public charge. The Trump administration has announced a rule change that may impact when a non-citizen is considered a public charge for immigration purposes. The rule makes it harder for some people to get green cards or visas because some immigrants must show that they will not be a public charge in their immigration applications. This test only applies in certain situations, including when someone is applying for a green card or if they are changing or extending certain visas. And it only applies to some categories of people applying for green cards or visas. When the test applies, federal immigration law allows immigration officials to deny green cards and visas if they find that an applicant is likely to become a public charge. It is important to know that this rule came into effect on February 24, 2020. This rule does not change eligibility requirements for public benefit programs. Getting care, treatment, or testing for COVID-19 will not make you a public charge or hurt your ability to apply for a green card. Getting charity or discounted medical care will not hurt your ability to apply for a green card. There is no public charge test when green card holders apply for citizenship. Seek care without fear. Immigrant New Yorkers who are concerned about the changes to the public charge rule could impact them or their loved ones and can get help making the best decisions for themselves and their families. You can get informed by speaking with a lawyer. You can also call the Action NYC Hotline at 1-800-354 and say public charge from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday to learn more and get answers to your questions. ICE agents are not local police officers. A very important thing to know that if you interact with an ICE agent, it is that they are not a local police officers from the NYPD. This is important to know because the NYPD does not conduct civil immigration enforcement. You can report a crime to the NYPD, but they should not ask about your immigration status. You should also know that New York State Police do not conduct civil immigration enforcement and should not ask about your immigration status. Sometimes ICE will wear uniforms that say police on them. This can be confusing. Some ways you can tell the difference between ICE and NYPD because they have different uniforms. NYPD uniforms will usually have a patch on their arm that says City of New York on it. ICE uniforms can have a few words on them such as Federal Agent, Police, Police ICE, or HSI, Homeland Security Investigation, or ICE SHI. ICE agents have different badges from NYPD police officers, which sometimes gets a little confusing, and that's okay. Some other ways you can tell the difference is by their badges. NYPD badges will say City of New York, and ICE badges will typically say ICE or Special Agent or U.S. Department of Homeland Security. Some of the places where people may interact with ICE agents are at work, in public spaces, or their home. It is important to know your rights in each of these areas. Do you all remember what I said about public and private areas? Whether a location is private or public determines whether or not federal immigration authorities need permission to enter. Your home or any home is a private space. Your place of work can both be public and private spaces. The streets, parks, and courthouses are considered public, but more on New York State courthouses on the next slide. Based on a New York State courthouse rule, as of April 17, 2019, law enforcement officials, including ICE agents, can no longer make arrests inside New York State courthouses without a judicial warrant or judicial order that authorizes the arrest and is signed by a judge, and I'll explain what these documents are shortly. On July 22, 2020, the New York State Senate passed the Protect Our Courts Act, POCA. The Protect Our Courts Act prohibits ICE and other law enforcement agencies from making civil arrests in and around New York State courthouses unless they have a judicial warrant or judicial order that authorizes the arrest and is signed by a judge. There are certain type of locations where ICE typically does not conduct immigration enforcement. These are called sensitive locations. Examples of sensitive locations include schools, hospitals, religious institutions, and public ceremonies such as weddings, public demonstrations, rallies, funerals, etc. It is important to know that this is an ICE policy and can change at any time. On October 24, 2011, DHS released the Sensitive Locations Memorandum setting forth ICE policy regarding certain enforcement actions by their agents at or focused on sensitive locations. These sensitive locations covered by this policy: schools, hospitals, religious institutions, funeral, wedding, or other public ceremony, site during the occurrence of a public demonstration, such as a rally, a march, or a parade. ICE has a number of investigative tools and databases that it uses to identify individuals who may be removable. They may know about people through a number of ways: people who have submitted an immigration application or otherwise have had interactions with the immigration system, including at the border; those who have been arrested and fingerprinted for a crime, even for very minor crimes, and even for arrests that did not lead to a conviction, and or from long ago. ICE has broadened the scope of its enforcement in the last couple of years. Nevertheless, the following groups of people are still a focus for arrest and removal: those with pending criminal cases or prior conventions. Those with an order of removal from an immigration court who have precisely been removed; those who have committed fraud or misrepresentation in the immigration applications; and those who believe pose a threat to public safety or national security. If ICE comes to your workplace or home, they may have a warrant. Does anyone remember what a warrant is? A warrant is a document issued by a government official that gives law enforcement permission to do certain things. There are different types of warrants, and each one gives ICE permission to do something specific. It is important to know what each warrant does and what each one looks like. First, we have the administrative warrant. And if you cannot see all the details on the screen, please let us know. An administrative warrant or an ICE warrant is addressed to federal immigration officers by their superiors at DHS, and it is used in a civil immigration enforcement action. It is signed by an ICE officer and not a judge. You can typically find the signature at the bottom, and an administrative warrant does not give ICE the authority to demand entry to private areas of a workplace or a home. And then just some extra information on warrants. An administrative warrant or ICE warrant seeks the detention or arrest for people for civil immigration purposes. However, note that these warrants are not from a court. Words including the following: U.S. Department of Homeland Security, Form I-200 or Form I-205, warrant for arrest for aliens on Form I-200, warrant of removal/deportation on Form I-205, and signed by an authorized immigration officer. The other type of warrant is the judicial warrant. A judicial warrant is signed by a state or federal judge. A warrant can give an ICE permission to enter the private areas we spoke about earlier. If the ICE agent does not have a judicial warrant, they need permission expressed vocally or by action of a resident to enter a home. If the ICE agent does not have a judicial warrant, they need to have expressed permission of the owner, manager, or supervisor to enter the private space of a workplace. Judges have ways of writing warrants, so they can always look different depending on who wrote it. Some things you'll always find are the name and signature of the judge, the name of the property they have permission to search, the date and time of the search, and the location of the court. On this slide, we're going to go through some important things to know whenever you're interacting with ICE. If you are approached by federal immigration enforcement agents such as ICE, be aware that you have rights regardless of your immigration status. Whenever you interact with ICE, it is important to remember those they believe pose a threat to public safety, or whenever you interact with an ICE agent, it is always important to remember to stay calm. You have the right to remain silent. If you speak to ICE, anything you say can be used against you. You can record the situation with your phone if you feel comfortable, and as so long as you do not interfere with the officers. Agents may say you cannot record, but that is not true. However, if agents are trying to talk to you or arrest you, starting or continuing to film may put you at risk. People can also report the ICE activity here at the Legal Aid Immigration Hotline or Immigrant Defense Project Hotline. And those are available for you to call at any time and to give any information that you need or to seek advice or to just to get any help in general. If ICE is at your door, you do not have to immediately open the door for ICE, and you do not have to speak to ICE either. You have the right to remain silent. If you want to speak to ICE, anything you can say will be and can be used against you. You can say, "I don't want to talk to you right now." From behind the closed door, you may ask them who they are and to show their badge, ID, or business card through the window or peephole, or to just to pass it under the closed door. You can ask ICE if they have a judicial warrant and to see the warrant through the window or peephole. If the ICE agent does not have a judicial warrant signed by a judge, they cannot enter your home without permission from an adult at home, except in emergency situations. If they do not have a judicial warrant, you may state that you do not consent to entry or search, but this does not mean you are allowed to physically resist a search. If ICE is inside your home, if ICE enters your home without your permission, you can tell them clearly, "I do not consent to you being in my home, please leave." Saying this may not always stop them, but it may help any future legal case. If ICE starts to search any rooms or items in your home, you can tell them, "I do not consent to your search." You can continue to repeat this if they continue to search without your consent. And you can tell them if there are any children or any other vulnerable residents in your home. ICE can enter the public space of any workplace without needing any type of warrant. Public spaces may include office lobby, supermarket, retail store, or dining area of a restaurant. ICE cannot legally enter the private space of a workplace unless they have permission of your employer or a judicial warrant signed by a judge. Private spaces are employee-only areas that may include the break room or storage room of a workplace. If approached by ICE at work, you do not have to answer their questions and can direct them to your employer. Your employers can ask ICE to show their identification and ask if ICE has a warrant. As always, if ICE agents try to search your pockets or belongings, you can say, "I do not consent to a search." If they search you in any way and you cannot physically stop them, but clearly saying you do not consent may be important in any future legal case. Things to know when interacting with ICE in a public space. When ICE agents arrest someone in public, it typically happens quickly. They may call your phone they may call your name out loud and ask you to confirm your name and then detain you. On the street or in public, you have the right to remain silent. Anything you say to ICE can be used against you. Before responding with your name or anything else, you may ask, "Am I free to go?" If yes, then you can say, "I don't want to answer your questions," and then walk away. If not, you can say, "I want to use my right to not answer any questions," and you can say, "I want to speak to a lawyer." If an ICE officer tries to search your pockets or belongings, you can say, "I do not consent to a search," but you may not physically resist a search. If you are being arrested by ICE, these are some things you should know. The agents may not be able to communicate with you in your language. If you speak to ICE, anything you say to ICE can be used against you. You may choose to remain silent. You may state that you wish to speak to an attorney before saying anything or signing anything. You can tell them if you have a medical issue or need to arrange for childcare. You should not lie or give false documents. You should not physically resist. If you are being detained, people in the community may film ICE so long as they do not interfere with the officers. If ICE agents are trying to talk to you or arrest you, starting or continuing to film may put you at risk. If someone you know is being detained by ICE, you can ask where they are being taken. The detention process can be confusing and immigration authorities may not walk you through everything, so it is important to know the information here. Again, the agents may not be able to communicate with you in your language, so you have the right to speak to an attorney and may ask to speak with your lawyer or take the time to obtain an attorney. If you are detained, you have the right to call an attorney or your family. You have the right to be visited by an attorney in detention. You do not have to sign anything. You may ask to speak to your lawyer before signing anything. You have the right to contact your consulate and write down the name and telephone number of the deportation officer assigned to your case. If you or your loved one has been detained by ICE and you don't know where they were taken, you can find them by using the ICE Locator, locator.ice.gov. To use the Locator, you need your loved one's countries of birth and a number or country of birth, first name, last name. Name must be spelled correctly, and date of birth. It is safe to use the Locator. Each ICE facility has its own rules about visitation and sending money. You can look up visitation and other information here at ice.gov/detention-facilities and call the jail to confirm that the information is still correct. Generally, people who are undocumented can visit their loved ones and their immigration status should not be flagged. However, it is important to review each jail's requirements for identification purposes and whether background checks are required. If you're worried about the risk of visiting a loved one, you should speak to an attorney. To find out when and where your loved one's next hearing will take place, you can call the EOIR hotline at 1-800-898-7180 and inputting your loved one's A number. If they do not appear in the system but do not have a court date, press 3 to check for old decisions. If it says that a court ordered removal, it means that your loved one will not get a new hearing and it is extremely important for them to get legal help immediately as they will be on a fast track to deportation. The New York Immigrant Family Unit Project is a program funded by New York City to provide free, high-quality lawyers for New Yorkers detained by ICE who have a case in immigration court. The New York Immigration Family Unity Project will assign a free attorney to those who qualify, and this may take place soon after the first master calendar hearing. If they are detained and the deportation case is at the Varick State Immigration Court, or the person is a New York City resident and the case is at a New Jersey court. The person detained does not already have an attorney. It is the first hearing in immigration court for this case, and the household income is below 200% of the federal poverty guidelines. How can you prepare for a possible immigration enforcement action? Some ways to prepare for an immigration enforcement besides practicing our Know Your Rights. This presentation and other similar presentations can help equip you for interacting with federal immigration officers. Create an emergency plan for you and your family in case you are detained or deported. Choose an emergency contact and memorize their phone number. This should be someone you trust, including someone like your lawyer. Choose a standby guardian for your children. A standby guardian is a person who you choose who will take care of your children when you cannot for up to 1 year. Making someone your standby guardian does not mean you are giving up your legal rights as a parent. It only means you are giving the guardian permission to take certain decisions for your children when you cannot. To learn more about the standby guardians, you can call the Action NYC hotline, and the number will be on the upcoming Action NYC slide. Another way you can prepare is by getting legal checkup to see if you're eligible for an immigration benefit and learn for more about your immigration options. Even if you have consulted with an immigration lawyer in the past, you may want to do so again in case something may have changed. Get an immigration legal checkup if you have any concerns about your immigration status, would like to learn more about your eligibility for an immigration benefit like a green card or citizenship, need help with an immigration application, would like to consult with a safe, free immigration legal service provider, and if you'd like to learn more about your rights as an immigrant New Yorker or make a complaint against your employer, you can call 311. Moya provides legal service support through their constituent service line in Action NYC. Action NYC will connect you to free and safe immigration legal help in your New York City community and in your language. Action NYC provides free, comprehensive, and confidential legal screenings to determine eligibility for immigration benefits, free, safe immigration legal help for a range of immigration benefits, including citizenship, green card applications and renewals, deferred action for child arrivals known as DACA or TPS, temporary protected status, and more. Action NYC is located in neighborhoods, schools, and hospitals throughout the 5 boroughs. You can make an appointment by calling 1-800-354-0365 between 9 a.m. and 6 p.m. Monday through Friday, or calling 311 and saying Action NYC. The Action NYC hotline is a toll-free live hotline that can connect you to immigration legal help and answer your immigration and naturalization questions. The hotline provides assistance in more than 200 languages. Through the hotline, you can ask general immigration and naturalization questions, receive an immigration legal appointment, obtain referrals to immigrant-related programs, and you can call this number at 1-800-354-0365 between 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday, or call 311 and say Action NYC to connect with a live operator, and all calls are confidential. When getting legal help, always ask the questions and remember, ask for proof of license and accreditation. Only a lawyer or an accredited person can give you legal advice. Get a second opinion. Only go to providers that have a physical location. Ask for a written agreement of services to be provided. Do not pay for government application forms. Ask for a written receipt. Keep originals and copies, and do not sign blank/incomplete forms or anything you do not fully understand. For non-lawyers can only translate, photocopy, and notarize, take your photo, and help you get documents and medical tests. To report immigration fraud, you can call the New Americans Hotline at 1-800-566-7636. Some ways to prepare for immigration. Oh, sorry. As an As important as it is to be able to access coronavirus testing, it is critical that you can access healthcare services if you do get sick with COVID-19. First, if you have health insurance, it is always important to remember that all health insurance plans must cover COVID-19 testing without any out-of-pocket payment. Second, New York State Emergency Medicaid covers COVID-19 testing and treatment without any out-of-pocket payments for low-income uninsured residents, including undocumented immigrants. If you want to sign up for emergency Medicaid in advance, contact NYC Department of Health Insurance Enrollers by visiting the DOHMH website, and you can also call 311 and say get covered. Third, if you have disputes with hospitals or doctors about medical bills or disagree with health insurance plans about eligibility or coverage, you just have to have questions about navigating the healthcare and the health insurance system. You can call Community Health Advocates CHA hotline at 1-888-614-5400. Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. CHA has a language line that can provide translation services in more than 170 languages. First, I'd like to thank you all for participating today, and now we're just going to go over a little review. If ICE agents, these are very important questions that I feel that need to be reviewed. If ICE agents do not have a permission to enter a private space, what kind of warrant do they need? Do you have the right to ask to speak to your lawyer before talking to ICE/signing documents for ICE? Can you call 311 for details or any city services?
So, Hanin, we don't have any questions in the comments, actually. Do you want to answer those review questions?
Which review questions?
Oh, the three that,
Yeah,
yeah.
of course. One moment. So if an ICE agent does not have permission to enter a private space, what kind of warrant do they need? And so for that, they would need a judicial warrant, because an administrative warrant does not give ICE the authority to demand entry to the private areas of a workplace or a home. You have the right to ask to speak to your lawyer before talking to ICE or signing documents for ICE. Yes. Can you call 311 for details on any city services? And for the 311 services for you to call, you are able to call 311 and say Action NYC. You are able to call 311 if you need any legal help. You are able to call 311 if you need any COVID assistance. You are able to call 311 and just request Action NYC, or just to say the word of what department that you are trying to get into. And do we have any questions at the moment?
I don't see any in the stream. But at any
Okay.
point, yeah, people can ask their questions at any point in the stream. So, Henny, do you want to move on into the last bit, or
Yeah, if you're ready, I'd
all
like
right?
to move into the last bit, which is going to be
Yes.
a little bit more about city services, protection from discrimination in workplace, as well as protection from discrimination in public.
Okay, we're ready whenever you are.
Okay. So city services and resources. Here in New York City, there are several services and rights that are available to all New Yorkers, regardless of status. Under the New York City law, especially Executive Order 34, city services must be available to all immigrants. So as long as the immigrants meet their other eligibility requirements, and that includes undocumented immigrants. You may now be wondering why then all the benefits and services you can sign up through the city are not available to you. And that is because there's an exception to this law. That is, if there are other legal barriers that ban the city from doing so, for instance, federally funded programs like SNAP, food stamps are restricted to certain immigrants under federal law. There could be also state law limiting availability of benefits by immigration status, but generally speaking, the city cannot provide services to only citizens or only documented immigrants without such legal justifications. In addition, under the same law, city employees cannot ask for your immigration status unless that information is necessary for them to provide the services. For instance, health insurance enrollers may ask for that information to see if you qualify for Medicaid or ACA subsidies. NYPD officers may ask that for information when they need it for their criminal investigation. With those exceptions aside, city employees should not ask for your immigration information. City employees are also prohibited from sharing any of your personal information with the federal government except in very limited circumstances. All employers in New York City with 4 or more employees must comply with the NYC human rights law, regardless of whether their employees are full-time or part-time, permanent or temporary, paid on the books or off the books, or are paid or unpaid interns. Some provisions of the law protect employers regardless of the size of business. Employers cannot pay workers lower wages or no wage because of their immigration status, harass or make fun of workers because of their nationality, religious beliefs, or attire, accent, or immigration accent, punish workers for speaking their own language, threaten workers about calling the police because of their immigration status, and refuse to hire someone because of their nationality, religious beliefs, attire, or accent. The NYC Commission on Human Rights protects individuals from discrimination in the area on public accommodations. Anyone who provides goods and services to the general public is considered a public accommodation. It is against the city human rights law for a public accommodation to withhold or refuse to provide full and equal enjoyment of those goods or services based on the following protected classes under the law: age, alienage or citizenship status, color, disability, gender, gender identity, marital or partnership status, national origin, pregnancy, race, religion, sexual orientation, status as a veteran or active military service member. Example of public accommodations are stores, banks, medical or dental offices, government agencies, hair salons, hospitals, hotels, theaters, restaurants, schools, and taxis. And that will actually conduct our Immigrant Rights Workshop today. Are there any more questions that have popped up?
No, I don't see any question in the comments. Anyone who's watching, if you guys have any questions, this would be the time to ask them. We'll conclude the program in 2 minutes since that's everything. So if there are any questions, feel free to ask. But Jazakallah khairan, Sister Haneen. This was a beneficial, presentation. Inshallah, we can work together to get more of these out to the community. If you guys ever, want to schedule one of these for your own masjid, feel free to reach out to Majlis or feel free to reach out to CARE New York. Either of us can, connect you with the person who can make this presentation for you and your community. And yeah, that is pretty much it from us. 1 minute. All right. Yeah. So that concludes the program today. Jazakallah khairan for jumping on. We appreciate everyone taking their time to join us and benefit from this presentation. And we will see you all on our next program, which should be posted very soon. Keep on the lookout.
Inshallah. Thank you so much, Brother Musab, for having me and letting me give this presentation out.
Absolutely. All right. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, everybody.
Alaikum salam.